Okay, welcome back everybody to DeFIRE AMA. It's June the 9th. Today we're going to do a little update on the back-end development updates that we had with our Tin Clouds team. Some front-end stuff too, a little bit of discussion about the Liquidity as a Service partnerships we're working on, um, and some of the other partnerships that we have been working on just with different protocols. And then talk a little bit about honing our pitch on our service to the people that we're looking at for grant applications in the future, trying to find a little bit more liquidity out there given the current market conditions. Um, so let's get into it. Okay, so this week we had a meeting with our development team that has been brought in to help us do some sprinting on on the engineering of the Blaze protocol. So we've got a couple of guys that are dedicated to helping us build out the architecture that Glitch designed for the Blazed app. And there's still just some ongoing technical details that we're trying to work through as to how to implement some of the concepts in order to optimize, for instance, issues around optimizing for gas when selling in and out of strategies, how to optimize for plugging and unplugging different strategies, and then harvesting the rewards, when to do that, how to dictate in the contracts, at what point we're going to implement this, a harvest based off of past experience with so with the one of the developers in particular has a lot of experience with that kind of service in DeFi, and so he's been a great wealth of information about just how to approach building a contract in order to optimize so that the protocol is saving money and then able to pass that along um, in the way of rewards. So just trying not to eat up extra capital, and so that's all stuff that has to be thought about in the front end. Um, we had one meeting at the beginning of the week. I believe Firefly had another meeting yesterday on some technical details. We are working on the front end as well. Pro Harvester is the front end dev that's been working on the strategy page of the Blazed app, which is has a lot of the initial architecture built out. There's a couple of pieces as far as API plugins showing different graphs and charts um, that are going to be a little bit more time consuming. We're still working on that part. And then there are three other pages of the Blazed app that are like the main tabs that are being built out as well. That will have to do with like showing your own portfolio breakdown, showing kind of a leaderboard amongst people who in the future will be able to participate in creating custom containers. And there'll be kind of a, excuse me, a gamification of the page showing who's got the highest TVL and different metrics that can kind of incentivize different people to invest in one container or another, and then provide rewards both to the container manager and also help bring more people into the protocol. And then the final thing will be the vote boosting page, which will be anybody who has a owner of GDFire, the governance token, will be able to uh, direct their votes to boost different containers. So that page will have like a breakdown of where the vote boosting is allocated by percentage, showing a chart of that, showing the previous voting period and the current voting period, showing like the average time that someone is locked into their GD Fire position. Where, and that can start anywhere from 2 weeks up to 4 years. So it'll just be showing like what's the average lock duration, and then there'll be the ability to uh, select different gauges when it's during a voting period, showing who all is in that, what the current percentage is and what the previous percentage was for that particular container. And so that's going to require quite a few different integrations of data. So there's some work to be done on that, but we've got an outline of the work scope and we have people on it. So I've been working on that with the rest of the team from the visual design perspective, and we've been passing them that along to the front end coders to realize the visualizations and then bring in the API plugins for different data points. So all that's in process, trying to move as quickly as we can, all that stuff. And then there's some things that are a part of getting going that we're still working through in terms of finding liquidity for DeFIRE to begin with, in order to be able to send tokens out to different dexes and have deep enough liquidity so that there's a good price action. We've already, done a good job, I think, of designing the tokenomics of the token. So the price action should be good from the theoretical standpoint, and now it's just a matter of making sure that when we first launch and Blaze is available, and we start doling out rewards, that that we have a good system in place for continuing to deepen the liquidity in the liquidity pair for USD and DeFi. And there's a couple of different protocols. Some of them are newer that provide liquidity as a service. Overall, in DeFi, there's not that many that do it in a way that provides no impermanent loss for the liquidity provider. So if you go in and stake, there are a couple that we're looking at where you can single stake, you can get a really good return for your investment. Um, they do a partnership with DeFi. So from the protocol standpoint, we'd be able to do a partnership where that USDC that our investors are driving liquidity to are uh, available for us to move into different dexes, whether it be on Avalanche, Polygon, Phantom, and at some point probably Ethereum, although we won't start there because of the gas fees. But nonetheless, there are several of those services that are out there. There's some of them are still in early phases, but have really good backing. They've done a lot of good work from the standpoint of security and transparency, and so we're doing our due diligence there, trying to figure out which way will be best. And there are probably more that people think of if you think of liquidity as a service from the standpoint of just doing a farming pair in a DEX, or a partnership with an automatic market maker protocol. And the thing there is that there's just um, a proven track record of sell pressure that happens when you use those. It does, provide you with liquidity, but it's a short-term solution. So we're looking to find opportunities to provide single staking, no impermanent loss rewards for anybody who provides liquidity to the DeFi token. It gives us deeper protocol-owned liquidity, and just as a more sustainable business model for the ecosystem. So there's a lot of work been going on right there. Um, we're also working on partnerships in terms of just partnerships between protocol to protocol. We already have established some where we're going to be, building out containers that are specific to a blue chip protocol, and providing exposure to their ecosystem token in a way that is farming for that with a strategy that has very stable returns. There's also in the previous AMAs I've described, the containers that we've already developed for these protocol partnerships have a stop loss feature. So even if that particular protocol token doesn't have price action stability in this bear market, we can still, be offering steady returns when the market is either moving sideways or up. And then if there's a large downturn on a 24-hour time frame, then the stop loss gets triggered, and then it moves into a stablecoin strategy that's still like it may be that that protocol offers a stablecoin strategy where you still return or get returns in the way of their ecosystem token for that stablecoin strategy, so we can remain focused on exposure to that protocol. Um, and so yeah, we're working on that with other protocols, kind of branching out to different styles of protocols and figuring out how we could mutually benefit. Some of them are on different blockchains that are not our initial blockchains. And so there's some discussion there about how we can do that in a way that's sustainable, where we don't get spread out too thin to begin with. And so there's some interesting ideas that we're continuing to develop there. Um, let's see. And then we've been working on our pitch for grants. We've already applied for a Polygon grant in the past. Um, And so we had a pitch to work off of. We did a lot of work to hone our pitch, and we've been showing that around to different people that have sort of sort of they have their network of people that have backgrounds in the VC world. Though we're not necessarily focused on any particular thing right now. We are still looking to get more liquidity just from retail investors with future sales rounds. But nonetheless, given the market that we're in and the inability of drawing just guaranteed amounts of TVL on any particular sales round, we're just working on seeing if we can get additional grant money to supplement our protocol development and possibly be able to, you know, sprint on some of the aspects that aren't moving as quickly as they would otherwise. So we're just working on every opportunity that we can find in that way, and it's always good to be able to hone down the message, not just from the standpoint of talking to other people in the business from a an industry standpoint, but just also for our future marketing and public relations efforts. So yeah, that's a little bit more of the back end, what the team talks about as a team. It's not necessarily as public facing to potential investors, but obviously here in the AMA, we want to kind of give a little bit of insight into what happens on the team level. So yeah, those are things that we've been talking about this week. Um, and I think next week we should have a little bit more to offer in the way of some deliverables. This was a lot of a process kind of a week, just slogging through things that are more like having meetings, getting paperwork together for some of the for our with Ten Clouds with our design team that did the work for us to lay out the landing page, which hopefully that should be able to be updated soon. So just a lot of back end work that's happened this week, um, and looking forward to having a little bit more in the way of deliverables from the standpoint of what the investors can look forward to utilizing. Also have had some meetings with people that are going to try to step up in the future here to help us uh, kind of broaden the depth of our advisory teams and from a standpoint of strategy, building strategies for the Blaze protocol, building strategies for protocol and liquidity pools, um, and bringing on more people to help with being able to reach out to do more business to business kind of stuff. So I would say like a handful of different meetings this week with people who have those kinds of capabilities that can help us expand our capacity. We've been running a pretty tight ship recently just because we're between rounds, and hopefully um, put out the next sales round that'll allow us to, go into some other things, bring on more people, provide more opportunities for bounties and things like that. And so, yeah, that's all on the horizon. So, yeah, this was kind of just a wonky week. a lot of details, not especially interesting, other than it's just important. It's the how you make the sausage, I guess. So yeah, that's the update for this week. Firefly will do another update on Tuesday next week, and we'll have some updates just in the way of tweets for the weekend for you. And I believe that Supreme Bit will probably be working on another newsletter for early next week as well. In the meantime, if you have any thoughts on um, what you'd like to hear from us, I want to talk a little bit about what it is that we know as a protocol, as a team about DeFi that gives us a unique advantage. And so I'm going to talk about that a little bit now, but also, I'm interested in hearing what you think about, based off of what you've read from DeFire, what you'd like to hear from us on that. So if you listen to the AMA, please come back with a question, either that you can put in the questions channel, or if you want to just shoot me a DM specifically, be happy to talk about that. So I've been thinking about this question of what do we know about DeFi as a team that gives us a unique advantage in this space. And I think that it goes back to our history and how the team got together um, and how we have been working on this protocol for the last several months since January. Um, so this has been written in separate places. It's been discussed in AMAs, but I'll just go back into that. And hey, how's it going? Um, we so the team knew each other in various different protocol servers on Discord before we got together as a team. And honestly, I'm not one of the founders. The founders were Glitch Phoenix and Firefly, and then I came on pretty early on as one of the first advisors. But I did know them from other spaces, and all of us were involved in kind of that previous. So I go back about a year and a half in DeFi, and so my experience was coming into it. Originally, I was interested in mining, and then I got into DeFi afterwards because I was just not aware of the opportunities in DeFi. So then when I started realizing the opportunities to get what was advertised last summer, like during DeFi 2.0 kind of push as a way to have passive income um, in DeFi protocols, then I started getting into it. And so I think that all of us have experience with some of the protocols that came out with a very strong promise of steady passive income. And that's like kind of like your standard shill that you have seen in the last year to 6 months on YouTube and on Twitter. That's that's being challenged. Like there are ways to have steady passive income, but there are fluctuations, right? And we're still trying to figure out like what's that way of building a protocol, building tokenomics that gives a very steady return, as opposed to just day trading tokens, right? So um, some of the protocols that came out last year that were, that were big on promises but didn't deliver that well were the ohm forks, the tomb forks, the Titano forks, and there are still people who are trying to make that work, right? So like you have some, Ohm is still like trying to make their business model work, right? Um, Hector Finance is another Ohm fork on Phantom that's still trying to make their business model work. Phantom is another Ohm fork. Tomb Finance is actually, obviously building out their own layer two to try and create a use case for their for Tomb, right? And then you have like Grape Finance. There's a couple of others, and you have some Titano forks that are still, doing pretty well here on. Let's see. So on Polygon, there's Sphere Finance, which has had some. Token has had some tough times, but in terms of their overall ecosystem and their evolution, they're still, generating a lot of interest for investors. So the The jury is still out on how that's all going to pan out, but um, I think that overall, as a business model, it's about the team, right? And it's about uh, both the development team and the marketing and the business team. Um, so that is that just about the tech, or is that also about the team? Um, so for us, I think our experience was as from an investor standpoint, even though we had backgrounds in DeFi, so Glitch had background as a developer. He had, a couple decades of experience in developing, some of it in DeFi, and then Firefly, Phoenix, and Glitch and I, there was some work that was done in different discords as contributors, as moderators, and so our we had a very strong pulse on the investor standpoint of, for me, I was looking for a steady return, right? Which I think most people who are in DeFi are looking for that steady return, and they're kind of analyzing what is a blue chip protocol based off of, who are the protocols that are providing steady returns, even if they're not crazy returns. Are they steady, and do they trust the team, and is there a good community, et cetera, right? Well, I think even if that has been achieved, there's still some questions out there about um, what happens when those most of those protocols have some sort of an incentivization in their tokenomics, right? And some of them have addressed that by creating NFTs, financial NFTs, ways of having tokens locked, but still being able to trade the tokenomics allows the trade of those tokens on the secondary market if they are locked in an NFT. Um, so there's still kind of like some gaming out that has to be figured out, but you can kind of see where the trajectory is going to go, right? Like there's going to be that option then to trade that liquidity on a secondary market. And the question, I guess, is that's out there is how's that going to pan out, right? When people have like various amounts of tokens locked in NFTs that are out there on PaintSwap or OpenSea or some other NFT marketplace, it, how is the retail community eventually going to respond to trying to find arbitrage and whatnot in that way? Um, and I think that there's still some abstraction layers to be developed, which are all moving towards the question of how do you onboard more people to DeFi? How do you change the financial system from the traditional financial system towards a decentralized financial system, utilizing Web3, utilizing DeFi protocols to create transparency, decentralization, um, a trust centric environment that's anonymous, can't be controlled um, by a sovereign nation. So, how do you protect self sovereignty of the investor? All of those kinds of questions, right? So, I think that the way that we are approaching Blaze development is to realize that the tokenomics of all of these protocols is going to go through these um, evolutions, and the extensibility and composability of the code itself for the protocol is going to eventually land on this question of removing friction points. How do you make it very, very intuitive for somebody who wants to invest but doesn't want to learn how to swap, how to bridge, how to get from a centralized exchange to a decentralized exchange? How do you make that simpler and simpler to the point where they can just analyze the opportunity, right? Here's a vault, here's the return, here's the risk. I can understand that, and I have the money available. How do I get from fiat um, to crypto and have that be a seamless interaction, right? And some of those are challenges that we still have to work on, but there are things that we can definitely do right now, and I think that that's the main goal of the ecosystem is to create what we advertise on our website, which is low touch wealth optimization. So how do you get access to the entire DeFi ecosystem, at least in the way of I have access to Bitcoin and Ethereum. I have access to layer one and layer two uh, tokens. I have access to blue chip protocol tokens on all the major blockchains that I believe and have conviction in. Um, and how do we give away the decision making process and democratize it so that there are people who are professional traders who can then come in and act as advisors, or take their own custom container and prove themselves as a trader, and then allow other people in the market to use that strategy. Um, so Blaze has, the backend architecture allows the investment of funds into several different kinds of technology. So the balancer technology, which allows multiple tokens to be balanced in a pool. Also, the ability to auto compound. So you can have a linear strategy that has, an LP token, right? So two different tokens balanced together, but then you can take the rewards and auto compound them back into that LP, or you can further invest them in a vault as part of the strategy, where maybe so to take an example, you would say, what's in my head right now is Spooky Swap on Phantom, right? So you take a DEX like Spooky Swap, you take some very stable kind of a farming pair, like a Phantom and Staked Phantom pair, or a Phantom Beefy Phantom pair, where basically there's no real impermanent loss on the pair. You're earning Boo, right? So rather than auto compounding Boo back into that pair, maybe you take Boo and you compound it into X Boo, and then you compound X Boo into Beefy Phantom, which is one of the opportunities right now. And then you take that and you split that reward back into Phantom Beefy Phantom. Or you can take X Boo and put it into one of the Yearn vaults, or some. I'm not sure if Market XYZ has the capability, but there are multiple different protocols that now will offer APR on that farming token, XBOO. Um, so, you extrapolate all the way down the line through those options that those protocols are offering to get exposure to that end token, and then that token can be brought back out of the protocol, or out of the strategy container, as a return on the investment for whoever puts their token into that container strategy. So you would put in USDC, or if you want to break down your tokens into whatever that LP would be, you can do that. So we're giving people who have experience the option to just place their LP tokens into the strategy container, or if you're new to DeFi, you can understand what the risk reward is by looking at the risk profile and looking at the APR. You can just deposit USDC, and then the contract will break that down into the strategy for you. And you'll pay a little bit of a premium to have that happen because there's more gas involved. But anybody can then invest in any number of strategies, and they can do it uh, from one user interface, right? And then they can have the Blaze container token receipts, and on your portfolio page, you'll be able to break that down and see what different styles of strategies that you have. So you can actually have a portfolio with different aspects of DeFi all available to look at in an interface where it shows you breakdown in a pie chart. Okay, I have my exposure to Bitcoin. I have my exposure to the L1, L2 tokens. I have exposure to blue coal chips, and then I have a couple of higher risk containers that I'm invested in. So you can do everything from one spot. So we're lowering friction points, and then the next step after we are have the full version of Blaze finished out will be to bring in the Ignite protocol, which is where you can unlock your liquidity. You take those receipt tokens from your container. So if you invested in uh, one of the Blaze containers, and maybe it was your Bitcoin and ETH, right? And so you're satisfied, you're getting a good return on that, and you want to go ahead and have the opportunity to free up that liquidity, and then either take profits off of it or reinvest it, right? So the Ignite protocol will be kind of an alchemic style lending protocol where you're paying with your future yield. So there's no appreciable risk of liquidation doing that. So it's unlocking liquidity in a way that is safe for the average investor, not having to worry about checking the price throughout the day in order to be able to do lending and borrowing kinds of activities. And then, in the future, we have some other concepts that we're mulling in different aspects of DeFi, whether it be derivatives, whether it be options, things that would be useful in for like the options where you're out of the money. That is something that would be useful in the current market. And then when we do get back to a bull market, some of these other things will be useful. So continuing to extrapolate things in a way that are very low touch. I bring my stable coins. I don't have to worry about which chain I'm on. If I have most of my liquidity on Phantom, that's fine. I deposit on Phantom, USDC on Phantom, any of the Blaze containers. Same thing with Matic, or if you have AVAX. And then as we develop further, we can not only use those USDC to provide containers that are exposed on those chains, but then we'll be able to move on to other chains, and possibly in the future be able to bridge funds into containers that are based on a multi-sig that's on Solana or something that's built in Rust. So that's not something that the average investor is going to do on their own, but you're providing broader exposure to the total market. Um, so I think that is our perspective, and that comes from our history in the space. And that's not to say that nobody else could copy the strategies, but in terms of the larger strategy of seeing that where we're headed in DeFi, and the where the steady returns will be from us as in terms of providing revenue that we can share with our investors, is going to be towards that larger piece of the unrealized um, revenue that's out there, right? That the majority of the unrealized revenue is with people who are not in DeFi yet. So you can try to fight for the TVL that's already here, or you can try to build services that are geared towards the people that aren't here yet. And I think that the higher long-term return is in providing a use case for the people that aren't here yet, and in a way that is respecting the underlying principles of DeFi, right? We all, everyone on the team, you know, wants things to be decentralized in a way that's responsible, in a way that provides security, and in a way that makes uh, that grows DeFi in a healthy way, right? Because there's a lot of protocols out there that provide a lot of hype, and if anything, the last month or two has shown us that there's a healthy and an unhealthy way to grow, right? So um, TVL is great. It definitely, in the short term, brings huge returns and does make people millionaires if they are early to a project. And we certainly want everyone who's here right now to benefit from the fact that they're supporting us when we're still trying to like hash through all of this. But we believe that the larger return that we're going to be able to promise to our investors is based off having a longer term point of view. So now I just need to figure out how to get that down to 100 words, and I think we're all set. So some of the conversations that I had this week are with people who have been in the DeFi space, that have been kind of somewhat involved in advising us, who are investors or who are thinking about investing, who have, you know, experience working as a principal in a company that's either in DeFi or in tech that can help us with those kinds of, you know, large, you know, the 64,000 foot view of what we're trying to do, and then, you know, have the mindset of how to get from A to B, with that business background. And then, you know, that's not to say that we don't need everyone that has the ability to contribute. But we certainly will be putting more bounties out for individual tasks, and we do on occasion ask people who have contributed to us in the past to help us right now. So I want, you know, definitely want to give recognition to people like Pro Harvester and Picunia on the development team, uh, Pangolin K, definitely not Fatson, a couple of other guys, Supreme Bit, all have been doing great jobs for us as writers, and on the DAO development and things like that. At the moment, we haven't been bringing on as many new people. Um, we because, you know, we are trying to be really efficient right now, and it just makes a lot of sense since those people have done a good job to continue to to bring those opportunities to them. But we will, when we get to the point of breaking out with the MVP, um, be bringing more bounties back for people that are, you know, out there that want to help contribute, to be able to be fairly compensated and have some experience in DeFi. Um, and Also, that will a big part of the push there will be in our education efforts. That's something that I would like to be able to do more of, and I've been somewhat focused on the mm, brand and uh, design aspects, strategy stuff. So there's not been as much of the educational output lately, and so hopefully when we have the MVP out and we're able to turn a little bit to that, we'll have more opportunities for people to contribute in the way of creating graphic design, video production, things like that. So yeah, um, I guess that's about it for the moment. And if you guys have any questions for me, happy to chat about that. Otherwise, if you wanted to just drop a comment in the questions channel, you can do that as well. Um, yeah.